So you have the VCE English exam coming up. Well, here is how to prepare, as well as some tips that help me achieve a raw 50. This is how this video is going to be structured. Let's go. So during the exam revision period, here were the main things that I did for each section of the final exam. For text response and comparative text response, I spent most of the time making detailed skeleton plans, and here's what I included in each one. So for a given essay topic, I would write down the contention, the 3 topic sentences, along with 3 to 4 quotes that I would use in each paragraph, and roughly how I would analyze them. Now, this doesn't have to be in full sentences, but overall you can see that this is more detailed than just a basic plan, but also less time consuming than a full essay. And altogether, I think I did about 100 plans, which might sound like a lot, but realistically each of these plans only take 15 minutes or so to complete. And as part of my revision, I had these essay plans as flashcards, which I would review before my exam. And every week, I tried to turn one of these plans into a full essay. But overall, the number of plans that I had was far greater than the amount of essays that I did, because realistically, we don't have that much time and that much energy to write hundreds of essays. And just in case you're wondering how to find essay topics, you can search for them online, such as on online forums or on the official VCAR website. Or you can do what I did and collaborate with some friends and try and come up with some topics yourself. And then for argument analysis, I try to do around 2 essays per week. And I recommend doing the VCAR articles, so the past exam articles, as early as possible, since this is an area that you mainly improve through practice. But when you write one of these essays, don't blindly go into it. So what I did was, at the top of my essay, I wrote 3 things that I wanted to improve, and make a conscious effort to improve these 3 things. And this might seem little, but if you just improve 3 things per essay, then your ability is going to exponentially increase over the time. And also for argument analysis, try to practice the area that you struggle the most. So for me, apart from doing essays, I was really bad at reading time and thinking of ideas really quickly. So what I would do is just go through lots of articles just doing the reading time, so the 15 minutes, and then just a quick 1 to 2 minute plan about what I was going to write, because you always want to strengthen that weakest link in your chain. And then for all 3 sections, after you finish writing your essays, it's good to spend time looking at some key sentence stems, key phrases, and quotes and analysis that you used. And I would often memorize these and try and reuse them in different essays. This way you're basically saving time for your future self. And finally, if you're wondering about full practice exams and how many I did 3 because they were organized by my school, but I found that the first one was the most helpful. So if you still have a couple of days before your actual exam, then I definitely recommend doing a trial exam, since this gets you used to the time limit. But I personally wouldn't stress doing too many trial exams, because there's more effective ways to use your time, such as doing more detailed plans. First, I take a quick look at section A and B just to see what the topics are, and this allows your subconscious mind to start processing the information. But for the remaining 14 minutes or so, I go straight to section C, so argument analysis. And more specifically, I aim to read through the article 2 times. So first time I would quickly read to understand the big idea, and then the second time I go through, I identify the quotes or the evidence that I'm going to use. And what I do as soon as writing begins is I label the quotes that I'm going to use, and in order as well for each paragraph. So for example, 1, 2, and 3, these will be the quotes that I'm going to use for my first paragraph, and so on for your second and third. And the reason that I labeled my quotes or evidence like this is so I don't have to go frantically searching for the things that I'm going to analyze. And this personally helped me streamline my writing process. And another perk is that this didn't take that much time. So I would only spend around 2 to 3 minutes for this basic plan. So after I finish section C, then I move on to whichever section is easier. So sometimes that's text response, sometimes that's comparative, but again, this is personal preference. And for me personally, I found that by doing the section that I was more confident in, I could build momentum to finish that harder one at the end. To manage our time, the general recommendation is to spend 1 hour per essay. And of course there's some variation with this, but I felt that saying 1 hour per essay is a bit vague, because it doesn't account for how the speed of our writing can change throughout this entire hour. So a more refined way that I found was to view each essay in 15-minute blocks. For example, my intro, conclusion, plus planning took around 15 minutes, and then each paragraph, so 1, 2, and 3, all took 15 minutes as well. And by being more specific, I felt like I had more control over my time. So for example, if it's been 14 minutes and I still haven't finished my first body paragraph, then I knew I had to move on. Otherwise, this is going to come at the expense of my other paragraphs and my overall essay. And another way to help you manage your time is to look at the word count. Now, it's not as simple as looking at a Word document, so here's what I mean. Each paragraph that you write would roughly fall in the range of 250 to around 300 words, maybe a bit more for comparative. But either way, what I would do is first find the exam booklet that you'll be writing on, and you can find this online, and write out a sample paragraph that is about 300 words, and visually see how many lines this takes up. So for me, it was around 30 lines, and it took over just one page with my handwriting. And so if I still haven't finished my body paragraph by the time I've completed one page, then I knew that I was overwriting and I had to quickly finish off the paragraph. And this helps you adhere to a strict time limit, and it prevents you from writing too much for one paragraph and then lacking in another. And final tip, if you're running out of time, ditch your conclusion. So what I did was I left the conclusions of all my essays till the very end when I made sure that I had enough time. And this is because missing out on a conclusion is not necessarily fatal. You won't lose that many marks. But if you don't finish that third body paragraph very well, then you won't be able to fully flesh out your idea, which is always much worse than not having a conclusion. If there's one mistake that you avoid, let that be not answering the prompt. This is one of the most common and detrimental mistakes, yet it can be easily fixed. First, make sure that you answer the topic head on. You don't need to be fancy, just use one sentence to clearly outline your stance on the topic. Second, include keywords or synonyms in your essays as much as possible. I would prefer repetition over not answering the topic any day of the week. And finally, make sure the quotes you use are always related back to the topic in some sense. And if you want more info, I have a quick 3-minute video that will show you everything you need to know about answering the prompt. Alright, now for some rapid fire questions. Do you have to use the quote in the essay question? Short answer is no. There's no specific criteria saying that you must use the quote in the question. With that being said, it's still good to look at the quote because it's basically the assessors telling you what ideas they want you to explore. And for me, I didn't use the full quote, so I just took a snippet and then just threw it in my intro or conclusion somewhere. And speaking of this actually reminds me of a friend who didn't memorize any quotes, and the only quotes they used were the 2 quotes given to them in the essay topics. So there you go. Should you proofread after you've written each essay? I personally did not, because I was quite pressured for time, so I wanted to make sure that I finished the entire exam first, because that's going to get me the most marks, and then go back and review and edit once I made sure that I finished all the 3 essays. How do you find ideas for an essay topic? So my advice is to come at the topic at different angles. So you might be through the lens of different themes, or for example, you might agree with the topic in one paragraph, disagree in another paragraph, and then in your third paragraph, talk about the overall message. But the basic idea is to always challenge the prompt, because this allows you to bring in ideas that you wouldn't be able to do otherwise. What did I do a few days before my exam? So I didn't write any full essays about 3 to 4 days before my actual exam, and most of my revision during this time period was quite light. So I would mainly go over those skeleton plans that I made, as well as look at some of the sentence stems and quotes that I've memorized. And then the day before, I basically just relaxed, went for a jog, and looked over some notes, I think, at the end. Stationery. So my biggest tip here is to always get a good pen. I initially had one of those pens from Coles that was quite cheap and it was really bad, honestly. So basically just find a pen that is comfortable to write in for 3 hours. What if I have bad handwriting? So my handwriting wasn't the best, as you can probably see. And of course, my biggest tip is to try and improve it. But another tip is to make sure that your handwriting for that intro and first body paragraph is the best that you can get it. And this is because first impressions matter a lot. Usually the assessors already know what mark they're going to give you by the time they finish that first body paragraph. And that's what I did. I made sure that the first page of my essay was the best handwriting that I had. So that is it, and to help you with your revision, I've compiled a study playlist with all the videos I've made about this subject. In these videos, I will go through what specifically to write for each section of your final exam, as well as some additional sample essays, tips, and tricks. So that's it. Hope that was helpful, and take care.